Hey, hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar here at ENCO Systems. We appreciate your time and we appreciate you being curious about DAD from a programming perspective. This webinar is all for the programming community in radio to learn more about our DAD automation and playout system. And so we have a really neat presentation set up for you and lined up to really discuss the things that you're really interested in looking forward to learning more about. On deck today to show you all about DAD from that programmer's perspective that you guys have, we have two super duper talented ENCO team members who themselves have an extensive radio programming background on their own before they joined ENCO. So they know exactly the seats you're sitting in and know the perspectives that you need to learn about more. This webinar should last about 45 minutes, give or take, depending on the length of the Q&A. And really, that's it for me. So I'm going to say goodbye and hand it off to Shane and Tiffany. And you guys, it's all you. And have a really great presentation. I can't wait to see what you got in store.
I'm looking forward to seeing what Tiffany has in store too, Bill. Thank you. Thank you, Bill, for that setup. We're looking forward to this today because we know that your time is very valuable. We know that a program director in today's day and age is wearing the hat of a consultant, oftentimes an ops manager, a music director, a program director. Sometimes you're filling in on weekends for talent and you're voice tracking multiple stations. And so your time is very valuable. And Tiffany's going to show you from the ENCO system DAD perspective how you can save time, how you can be more efficient and more effective in your current role. So Tiffany, I'm going to step back. I'm going to step away from the screen and monitor questions and answers, and we'll be here for you and looking forward to seeing what you've got to share with us.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Shane. I really appreciate it. So thanks again for joining us today. I'm excited to show you what I have prepared. I've done some things here within the DAD system. I'm actually going to go ahead and share the screen with you. When you're looking at an automation screen, I want to walk you through quickly. So we're going to talk about some different functions and features here. This is the DAD system presenter interface. So this is your live assist mode, essentially. And this is a culmination of many years of development and programming coming together to say, what is it somebody on the air and in programming needs to be able to utilize for on-air hosts, as well as just kind of making things more streamlined. So we're going to talk about the array panel, the mini array that's in here. We're going to talk about recording things on the fly, which will also come back to some configuration that we have pre-done to program buttons or what we call array panel keys, and also some of the features that you can have within the DAD system in our script functionality are some of the focuses. So doing things on the fly and recording, whether that's going from recording an interview with somebody live on the air, or maybe you've given away tickets to something and things like that. So we're gonna talk about a few different applications in here that will allow you to basically stay on this presenter screen almost at all times from the perspective of being in studio and how to make ease of access happen. So we've got here the stack on the left, and for programmers, many of you, if not, all of you have probably seen something like this out there in automation, but essentially you have your, what we call our auto or manual playout button here, and we'll talk about that in just a moment when I get things running for you. The countdown to give you your timing on your tracks, as well as the time of day and different things here, your meters, and then we have 6, basically what elements are coming uploaded and playing out within the playlist. We'll talk about some of these buttons down here at the bottom as well, and then go into the application. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play so you can see this start to play out and looking at the functionality. So you've got it to where this will autoplay your entire playlist or log, as you might know it, which is loaded up here. And you can pop that into something like manual mode, right? If you're about to go on and do a stop set or something like that, you can pop that back in very easily to be able to continue on with what you're doing. You can see here it's counting down the song for me so that I know exactly what's going on. Again, things that might be familiar to the majority of you out there. So I know, Shane, you and I had been talking about some different things here earlier of where to focus in, and I wasn't sure if there were questions questions so far that we've had of what you'd like me to go into first, or prompts or things that you would like to discuss and focus on?
Question for you. Can you show me how I can edit a song on the fly from the studio?
Yes. So there's actually a couple different things that you can do here. Now, within Presenter, you have the ability to see your entire DAD, kind of the GUI, if you will. So I'm going to try and do this nice and slow, but if I slide this over, I could even X out of Presenter, but I want to show you that you don't have to do that necessarily to be able to access a key component of what you're doing in Studio, which if you focus on where my mouse is down here toward the left bottom part of the screen, I'm focusing and hovering on the library component. So I can pull up our library here through this application, but specifically to go in and quickly edit a track to be able to maybe cut out the front end of something like the music leading up to what's maybe an explosive beginning. So then you're going to come in and talk, or you're using it as a way to introduce an element within a talk set, something like that. You can actually open up your library here, and I can extend that out a bit. And we're in a music cuts library here that I'm focusing on. So if I come in and I highlight, let's say, Katy Perry's Dark Horse, and we want to actually go in and edit out maybe some of the part or cut out the head of this song, I can just highlight, hit the yellow edit button, and it will actually pull up, and now we can focus in on that specific track. Within this screen, there's some different buttons here. Of course, you zoom in, zoom out, do some insta trimming, things like that. But our focus here is going to be on this section that says heads, tails. And what you can actually do within our system is very quickly hit what you'd like to do. So you can set a header, or you could do a cut to this specific track and actually come in, and I can drag this up to cut out potentially right before some explosive spot happens. And then we can actually go in and we can save this down, and we can exit, and I can save that. And now that cut is actually going to come in and be exactly where I just edited out the entire beginning slot of that. And there's some different functionality too, which we didn't really focus, we're not going to focus on today, where you can duplicate the cut in your library and then take the cut that you'd like to edit out, certain pieces for different use reasons. And you can actually then save that as a different cut number, and you could store it into a different group or folder. So again, I can quickly pull something up, edit it down, and then come in. And so now that I've got that saved, I'll go ahead and click out of that. We're going to actually see the cut be able to be dragged and dropped into the playlist here. So that'll be the next thing I want to show you guys. So I've opened up our library application within DAD and within the presenter interface, and I'm actually already in my music tab, but you can actually access all of your groups right from within this application. And I'm going to scroll down, and we're going to find our Katy Perry Dark Horse and say I wanted to have that loaded up and ready to go right after this next element. I've actually got a couple of options. I can go ahead and drag and drop, and we went ahead and we saw that change right away. So there's a nice, easy, seamless way to pull things into the library. If I did not like where I actually put that, I can actually click, and I can easily, very quickly swap that out for a different track. Maybe I want it to go down further, and I can do these things all while everything's playing out without affecting any of the actual element that's going out over the air. So we have that feature. We can also take, close that out. I'm going to pop that a little farther up. We can also take this, we can open up our mini array panel here, and I can actually go into, say, a blank page. We get 16 pages, each with 16 buttons in the mini array panels within the presenter interface. And I can open up the library down below, and I can take that same cut, if it's not something I want to input into the playlist, and I can drag and drop it right here. So if I decide I want to stop my playlist after this next track, I can hit manual, and then I can be ready for when that song stops. I can actually fire this one off. If I click it, you can see it start to run out at the same time here. And then if I want to stop it, I can do that too.
Very good. That's excellent. That's a time saver and a neat way to do something cool in the studio.
Definitely.
Here's another question for you.
Sure.
You know, a lot of times programmers are very interested in recycling content, particularly in the morning show. Phone calls that are really, really killer at 6:20 in the morning, and you want to play them again at 8 o'clock when you've got a massive audience. Maybe contest resolves that you want to play multiple times during an hour. How can you easily record and repeat content while you're in the studio? Maybe the prod room's busy and you'd like to do something right in the studio while you're doing something live on the air. Is there a way to do that in the studio?
Yeah, actually. And there's actually a couple of ways that you can do it in the studio, which is really neat. So I'm going to show you one way that kind of follows. There's a couple more steps to it, still very simple to be able to do. I'll go ahead and stop this track here just to kind of focus us in on this application over here called the record application. Very simple. You pop this open. And what happens is it's going to open up basically a mini record deck within the presenter interface. You're going to come down here. All you have to do is hit new. Now there's some other back-end configuration aspects to this that can allow you to automatically pull up, when you hit that record application, a specific group or folder within your library that it's going to save to, and also cut numbers that can be dictated, like a range of them. And we do a 5-digit cut number scheme within our database. So mine has already defaulted to 99320 because I've got mine set to next available cut within my library. So I've already got this. You can come in and you can actually title TIFF morning winner, let's say, with the date and the time. So you can keep track of it that way. Going into my music group, and I'm defaulting there to make it easy when I pop my library open. Hit accept. So now we have everything accepted. It's going to automatically save this into my library. We hit record. We arm it basically. And then when I press play, you see that counter start to go. Now, right now, this is a demo setup, so we don't have the audio coming into that record deck, but you would see these bouncing to let you know that you actually have levels coming in. You see the timer, you get the person screaming that they've won their tickets, or the person calling in and saying, "Oh my God, I love listening to you guys in the morning," whatever the case. And once you're done, you can stop it and you can actually close that out. Okay. So we're going to go into the library just really quickly. I can actually see it automatically within the library application, but I want to show you something that's really nice and quick and easy to do, which is also edit that down quickly in case you had anything you wanted to cut off the tail end or something on the front end or even in between. You can actually pull that up in the library. And if I scroll down and we highlight, so now you see where I've highlighted TIFF morning winner. And if I go over here again to this little edit button, bang, I can come in and actually now start to, whether it's set a heads and tails on it, cut and paste, do some fading, segues, etc. I can get all that done on the fly, and I can have this thing basically turned around in the amount of time that it takes to open that up in the library, edit it, and then put it back in. So once I essentially would save and exit, I can actually close out of here. If I open my library again here, I'm already, let's see, where did we go? 933. It might have saved me. Uh-oh, now I'm not seeing it in here. Let me close this down again and see if I find her down here. Well, I know it's saved in here. So now, generally, this is where I'm going to see that cut save. However, it did not pop up, but I know that it's in my music category because I've got it right here. So something that, I'm going to have to look into is why that didn't actually add it over to my application in the library, but that is something that you can do on the fly. Something else that you can do, and this is again where making sure you've configured everything in a way that you actually want it to perform, is going in. So I'm showing you our array panel again. So we've got a couple of different, I've got some different things that we've programmed here. So you can go to instantly and play out the actual audio, but there's also some other functionality in here. If I want to go down to page 15. So I have the page 15, I've actually got a record phoner in here, and we've got a couple that we've been playing around with, but this one right here has a functionality. So if I'm on the air and I don't want to open up the record deck and I don't want to set things and do all that, and if this is configured, I can actually hit this button. It's going to turn it yellow. You can customize all of the coloration within DAD and actually have it so it's whatever colors you actually think work best in your setting. And I've armed it basically. And now I'm actually recording here. And once I hit this button for a third time, it's been configured to automatically pull up my edit bay or edit deck. So then I can come in here and I can say, okay, now we're going to do some cutting and pasting, and we're going to see everything kind of open up within that realm. We can undo, redo, and then as soon as I hit save and exit, I now have a nice fresh phoner that I can instantly play out on the air without having to go anywhere else. So it's one of those things where you've got a couple different ways based on comfort level for the person that's on the air. It's also, how you have things configured, but you can do this in quite a few ways, which is really nice, at least in my personal opinion, having been on air.
And I'll tell you, it is a great way to make your automated hours sound live. If you build a bank of phoners, generic phoners, and you can plug those in later, it just completely sounds live on the air and no one will be able to tell the difference.
Exactly. And I think, with this demo example, one of the biggest things is, trying to make it that ease of access as we present it. But one of the key factors here was you wouldn't want to save the recordings, from phoners or contest winners in the same grouping as, say, a music category, right? You wouldn't want those necessarily to be cycled in, but it's a great thing to diversify your library, like you were saying, and the sound of your station. So you can always go back and reference. And then once you've gone through a certain amount of time where you don't want to use them anymore, you simply go into your library and you clean it up and you purge out some of those, or you back them up somewhere and clean up the database for the rest of what you want to build your logs and playlists out of.
Here's another thought for you here as we continue to walk our way through this. I know that a lot of people are working remotely these days, and so are managers, so are vice presidents of programming, consultants, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But they still want to see some accountability. They want to have hands on the radio station. So they're demanding more from their program directors as far as accountability. One of the things that we see a lot is that they request aired logs so they can check and see that everything ran that should. Tell me how I can go into the system, I can pull up an aired log, a played log, and I can email that along to somebody fairly simply.
Okay, so there's actually, for a full extensive log, say of an entire week or 30 days, I'll walk you through in just a moment. But I think something that sparked me in that question is something of like understanding what's been played out on the air for that day, which can be really valuable, both from a programming perspective, if you're looking to be accountable, especially to your bosses, but also from somebody who's been on air perspective. So keeping that sound nice and fresh, looking at what's been played. We actually have an application, again, all within Presenter, looking at some of these areas. So you've got history. So when I click this button, it's actually pulling up everything that's been played in this playlist, or that for this particular day's playlist. And again, mine's not running a 24-hour. It's just a sample demo playlist, but it's telling me what played out of that. And you can actually specify the metadata that shows up within this. So right within Presenter, you could be in studio, you can look and say, okay, have we played Chris Brown at least once today? Well, I can highlight right there and go, oh, wow. And I can actually even audition the track to confirm it's the cut that I'm looking to have played, or what specifically was played just by even listening. You can, slide things over and minimize to see other areas and go over here. You can see, time started, time ended, etc. So you can actually look through here and see what has been played. And I remember using this tool as somebody in studio who could look and go, well, I wanted to do some Katy Perry, Taylor Swift, something like that, depending on your format during my set. But I want to make sure I'm not playing something that has been already played more recently, or playing, the same artist too many times within a certain time frame. So it's good for that. There's also a side of this where if you click on where it says as play, it will actually show you a list of skipped tracks, that things that have either been dropped out of an hour, or things that have actually been, pushed out manually. So you can actually go back and forth between what's been skipped. So you could actually drag and drop that cut into a playlist and know that it's played out for whether it's someone you're contracted with, as you brought up, or being accountable because it must be played, or you can just see where it's been played. But to answer the longer part of that, or the more extensive log part, a week's worth, a month's worth, etc., you can actually go into, and I'll click on this library icon, which is over in the GUI to the left here behind the presenter interface, just to show you. You actually have a button down here on the bottom. If you look kind of toward the middle bottom of the screen, if you click reports, you can do a lot of different types of reports, but I think the one that we're focusing on now is the as plays. So if most people would title this by date, but you might have a different scheme of how you do it. In my demo machine, I do. And if I hit double click that, you can actually see this come up and begin to look through. And this is for June 29th, 2021, but you can actually print out multiples of these for multiple days. So you could have a month's worth. I mean, you can go back basically as far as your playlists exist to be able to pull those reports. And all you have to do to be able to send this along to someone is go into File, go into Save As, and wherever you want to save that onto your computer or a flash drive or something like that. So then you can actually send it as an email, because these are .txt file extensions. So pretty much anybody anywhere should be able to receive these.
And that's excellent. If you're a reporting station and you have pledged a minimum number of spins on particular records, you can go in and you've got instant accountability there by pulling that as play and seeing if anything was skipped.
Exactly.
It's kind of a difficult situation a lot of times with people being able to monitor. And if you've skipped a record and you don't meet your minimum pledges, it can jeopardize your reporting status. So that's a great feature. Hey, here's one that we've all had to face at different times. We're on the air, we're live, we've got a couple of hours to go, and suddenly something comes up. The kid gets sick at school, whatever. You can look in the different production bays and see that they're all busy, and you just need to track. You just need to track from the rest of your shift. How can you track on the fly while you are live on the air?
Okay, so, and I'll actually come in here. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. So you can, if you pull up the playlist here under the playlist application, and you can do it whether it's on the bottom or the top, it doesn't really matter, but I'll pull it up here on the bottom. So this is our day's playlist, and I don't have it playing right now, but that's not a problem if it is actually playing out. Actually, I can hit this here. Don't mind that. I'll explain that more in just a moment. So we've got this song playing. So it's highlighting the green down here. That's telling me what's currently playing out, which I can see to the left as well. If I unlock my position here so I can freely move within this day's playlist, and say I need to go down because I'm going to have to leave here by 2:40 p.m., but I have to go live again at 2:45, and I'm supposed to do another one, somewhere between 5 minutes before the hour. I can actually come in here and say, okay, so I'm going to click on Love Me Again by John Newman, and I can actually hit this little button in the bottom right corner here. It's called the tracker button. All I got to do is click that, pull it up, and it pulls up a little voice tracking deck for us. All I have to do is press play, or I'm sorry, I press record. And now it's actually going to be picking up my voiceover Thank you for joining us here today. I'm Tiffany Michelle. We're going to be listening to all this different music coming up. Thanks for listening. I stop it. Now, again, mine's not set up to record in because it's a demo unit, but you can see here, if I move this, if you see these two pink bars, that's where my wave, my audio wave would be living right now. And I can actually move this around to align it. Or I say, oh man, that was way too long. I can't mess with that. So I can actually delete the VO and I can start it again. Thank you for listening. Coming up, we have Katy Perry, we've got Lil Wayne, we've got Jesse Glenn, and keep on tuning in. And then we stop it and I go, okay, that's a little better. And you can actually move the segments or the elements before and after the voice track 2 to nice and neatly align that. So if I save it down, and we just saw below, I don't know if everyone caught that, but it actually populated that VO track. If you look down below, I highlight it. Now we have our voiceover in here. So if I go up to close this, I save it, and we are 100% set at that time to make sure that we get our voice back out on the air.
So you can manually insert a track even if your clock isn't calling for one.
Correct.
That's fantastic. And you could do that very much on the fly.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a great feature because I think there's a lot of times where if you're looking to, maybe even you've got to step out of the studio. I mean, there's so many different reasons. And I know you brought up, Shane, maybe you get a call and you have to go pick up the kids early and you're like, I've got a half hour left of where I need to be on the air. Or it could be something like an emergency meeting comes up, or, any number of things. The person that's supposed to come in later in the day won't be there, but you want to make sure it sounds live. You can actually do all of this day's voice tracking throughout that 24-hour period, or what's left of your log to play out, and you can voice track multiple times within it.
Okay, so that's fun, that's exciting, but that's also a little bit scary as a program director because there are some people that you may not want to necessarily have access to all areas of your of your functionality. Is
Right.
it possible to, I guess, limit access to some people on your staff and grant some people deeper feature access?
Yes, and that's a great point to bring up. Again, security and safety are of the utmost importance, obviously, for what's going to go out over the airwaves and what people are going to hear, whether it's on the streaming side, and so on. So you can actually create multiple user profiles for the DAD system and have a login page set so that anytime someone comes into the studio, they have to log in with their credentials, and you can set different restrictions, or if you like to say it more like certain level of permissions. So whether that's restricting being able to delete from the library, being able to enable record decks, being able to change what's actually in the playout decks, and so on. There's actually a multitude of things that you can limit access and functionality to depending on the user defined.
I feel a lot better about that now. I know Bill has been monitoring our question and answer session from our attendees. And Bill, I'm curious if you've happened to have any good questions that have come through from your perspective.
Howdy, guys. Yeah, we do indeed. One of our visitors here, Matt, says he'd like to learn if there's an opportunity for elements to be set up to be automatically segued over song intros, whether it's morning show coming up tomorrow, or if we can schedule, or if they can schedule voice tracks using carts to automatically roll over intros.
Oh, okay. So you're just looking at basically like a crossfading, I think, is where making sure that elements segue, crossfade, and you don't have the kind of the cut off, right? Like something ends and it's almost like, is it dead or are we starting again? It's like the constant seamless sound, right?
Exactly. And if not, Matt, submit another question to dial in. And so Tiff, it's all yours, please.
Okay. Okay. So what we've got here, which is in presenter, is if you notice these S's that you're seeing, and because I'm playing a constant music playlist, all of these are S's. Okay, and so this is something where within your clocks or your log that you create in playlists for each day, you can actually dictate these transitions. So right now, these S's actually stand for segue, and you can set the timing of the segues too. So if you want things to naturally do about a 2-second segue from one element to the next, you can actually manually go in, configure that, and then as you build clocks, it'll follow that rule. So these actually are segueing these cuts, but you can make it so they aren't, because you might have commercials and things that you don't want to overlap, and you would see those. I can manually change these in Presenter as the log runs, and I can hit A. So what A would allow to happen is that with this track going to this next one, we would actually hear no segue, because maybe we've got PSAs that are running back to back. So you can definitely set segues so that you have that nice seamless sound, constant, ear thriving, pumping stuff coming at you without any weird breaks or stoppage in the music. And again, you can set those segues to run 2 seconds. I think the average is about 3 to 5 seconds for most people or most stations, but again, very customizable within DAD itself. And then also you can manually manipulate things within the presenter interface.
Oh, that's cool. That is flexibility right there. When you're live, you really need that. Tiff, Matt has one quick follow-up. He says, with the segue, does it auto duck the levels?
You can use auto duck, or you can actually do manual ducking of yourself, but you can actually hit the auto duck to kind of naturally pull those levels down. And, there's a lot of different things within DAD when it comes to bringing in your audio that you can do to really even out that sound. Because I think that's another thing that can happen when you've got content coming in or being ingested from different places, is this idea of, I think we used to talk a lot about like the volume wars. Why is one cut I'm getting, or one track, so much louder from this era or from this specific kind of place, or maybe even in this format, so much louder than others? So you can actually do normalization on ingestion of your content. You can actually trim, you can do auto ducking. There's so many different options that you can set up to make this thing just basically do everything you need it to do as you're looking to have each function work for you or automate the process. So yes, you can auto duck, you can manipulate all different aspects of the audio and how it runs and flows together.
Cool. And Matt says, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got another question for you, Tiffany.
Sure.
We used to have liner cards in the studios all over the place.
Oh, the good old days.
Yeah, all the good old days. And they'd end up under the board or behind the console or whatever. And now there are ways within the DAD system to add scripts that keep things fresh, and our personalities, our talent know exactly where to go to look for those scripts, and you don't have the sound of paper crinkling in hands and more. Can you just show us a little bit about a script?
Sure. So you can actually do a few different things with our script feature, which I've got. There's an application over here that you can pop up, and I'll actually unload this. I've already got something that's come through that's actually popped one in here, but you can load in a script from your database if you want to, and you can do that. So there's a couple things. Number one, you can be connected to the internet. Most people, and I'm not even going to go on, I know that safety and security is number one, but if you had something where you happen to have the ability to be online, you could actually pull up, say, like a weather page to be able to read off the weather and things like that. But I think the best way to focus here within the script is to go to the browse, and you can actually manually load in a sample script or your actual script. Hit open, you load it up, and let's see, mode 1. Why doesn't that? That's because I need to go back in and choose one of the ones that I put in here. So I can actually come in here and open this up, load, And now we've loaded in a script. So if I said, it's a shameless plug here, I loaded in an HTML file that was actually for this webinar today. So I've got this, and you can come in, and if you wanted to be able to read it off, you could do that. I can unload this as well. So you can load things in, whether based on HTML, you've got different settings within DAD to do TXT files or text files and keep it very, very simple. You can do HTML files, and then there's also one that's called SML files that's based more on DAD configuration and language, which can do some more interactive things within the DAD system. So you've got quite a few options, but something else to show you that is really fun. I'm going back to this array panel. I think this array panel can practically run your station if you do things right. So if I come in here, I'm going to go back out to, this is all my different page options. If I open this up, so I've got something preloaded called load promo script. So if you program and configure this, any number of buttons and have scripts, if I click here, bam, now without all the paper stuff, without having to go to this computer and that computer, I actually have scripts that I can have preloaded, don't have to worry about paper getting lost, a binder going missing, or any number of things, and you can leave this up. You can also close this out, and in about 5 seconds, we're going to see this cool feature pop up going from Katy Perry to capital cities. I have auto script. Okay, did we all see that? So this is actually pre-programmed, and the metadata, I have basically configured a script to come up when this cut plays. And you can go in and you can change what's associated with that particular cut. But let's say you had, Capital Cities is coming back, going into concerts, right, this summer. And you could actually go in and attach a script to this the metadata within this cut or this audio track, and you could have it automatically auto-populate and have the script machine pop up while you're sitting in studio on the air. And I actually have multiple tracks that are programmed to do this, just to kind of show you that they change. And you can also unload and get rid of that, close it out. And then let's say, so I'm going to use this little button in the bottom left of the presenter screen. And you're going to see another script auto-populate. So now we have a different one that comes up, and it's associated with this Chris Brown tune. So you've got a lot of different ways that you can eliminate the hassle of switching away from the DAD screen or the presenter screen within DAD, and also having to deal with paper, losing things, worrying that you don't have maybe an updated copy. And it's really, really helpful to keep people interactive and on air. I think it helps the sound a lot.
Certainly provides consistency in message and allows an opportunity to maintain the integrity of your brand in those situations, and get away from lost scripts and people carrying the liner cards out when they leave the studio and more. It's a really fantastic feature. Or
writing on them. I've seen that too, where maybe, and I get it, if you want to do a quick edit to something, there are some different ways, which again, these are all features that if you've got someone on air and you want to restrict them, you want them to see everything, you want them to be able to use the mini arrays and actually pull up things, you can do it and still restrict them from being able to delete things out or edit them. But there's just a lot of different benefits to having this all in that one place. Again, people walking out of the studio with the stuff, marking it up to where it's almost, you can't read it, or just things getting torn and starting to look really tattered, and making it harder to actually perform that in the studio.
Our time is short, Tiff, but before we go and we invite Bill back in here, let me ask you one question that I've heard multiple times myself, and that is it possible to voice track multiple shows from different production studios at the same time?
Oh, within DAD?
Yeah, within DAD.
Oh, yeah. So you can definitely voice track. Do you mean different logs, different playlists each day?
Studio Prod Room 1 is tracking Saturday, and Prod Room 2 is tracking Sunday. Is that function possible?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You can voice track, if the playlist exists, you can go in and voice track it. Now, the biggest thing to keep in mind with that, and I'm glad you bring up and separate it out, like Saturday, I'm doing in production one, I'm doing my Saturday show. In production room 2, you're doing your Sunday show. That's totally fine. There's not any issue with that. Where we get into issues, and I think this is a general best practices, is you don't want to be trying to do the same playlist from multiple studios maybe at the same time. And that's not just a DAD system or, ENCO automation thing. That is across the board, especially when you have so many complex processes capable within the system. But yes, you can do multiple different days logs from multiple different studios. I mean, if I'm in and I'm doing later today within the on-air studio, you can be tracking for Saturday and Sunday in a different studio. So yes, you can definitely do that.
Well, thank you, Tiffany. Bill, take it away. It was a great time. And
yeah,
thanks
you
for pointing out specific things to us. It's very helpful.
Hey, you bet, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for all of your expertise and time on that, Tiffany. I know you eat and sleep and breathe dad all the time, and it shows. I mean, I know you could go for hours about this.
Definitely. And that's something too. Anyone out there who's watching and listening, if I brought up things that made you go, oh, hey, what about this? Or, oh my goodness, hey, you know what? Bill's going to show our information on the screen. Feel free to email us, email me directly, Shane, anyone here at ENCO, and we'd love to sit down, talk you through more stuff, do a demo with you. If you're not a client already, we'd love to get you more information.
So thanks again, everyone.